Tell us more about unemployment.
Despite the theoretical belief that Singapore's unemployment rate has increased in this currency war, our unemployment rate actually fell from 3.3% to 2.1% in 2010 when the currency war happened. This is because Singapore does not depend very heavily on goods that are volatile to price changes for economic growth. In this currency war, unemployment occurred mainly in sectors like electronics and wholesale and retail trade because these are sectors which demand is price elastic, implying that an appreciation of our currency due to the currency war that give rise to their exports will lead to a more than proportionate fall in the demand, giving rise to deficit demand, and hence cyclical unemployment in these sectors. For Singapore, we export mainly high-end necessities like pharmaceutical products and refined oil, where the demand remained relatively constant in this currency war. Hence, the overall unemployment rate for Singapore was not affected significantly because of the currency war.
Tell us more about economic growth.
Like the argument for unemployment, Singapore's growth was not dampened by the currency war like how it was theoretically believed to have, but was in fact boosted along the course of the currency war. From Figure 4, we see that the four sectors, mainly manufacturing, wholesale and retail trade, business services, and financial services, have already made up approximately 63% of our GDP. Once these main sectors are on the boom, we can rest assured that we are going to have a
booms year.
In the course of the year 2010, manufacturing, construction, and service sectors all registered positive results, and this could be attributed to the currency war. Walmart, the largest retailer in the world, has 80% of its products made in China. Looking at the economic progress of China as the BRIC, the group of emerging economies, it is no doubt that China will soon be the world's manufacturing powerhouse. With a population of 1.3 billion and a land area of 13,500 times larger than Singapore, China has the abundance of human and land resources, which gave her the comparative advantage in manufacturing, allowing her to specialize in her economy in that aspect. However, the economic tension between US and China, due to the issue of the yuan, has inevitably stifled their bilateral relationships on trade, and they are likely to have reduced trade volumes with each other, thereby diverting their needs for manufactured goods to Singapore. Moreover, with the gradual appreciation of the yuan during the currency war, Chinese exports are dearer, international bodies are likely to have diverted their demand for manufactured goods to Singapore as well, thereby boosting our growth. In the service sector, Singapore has seen a huge growth despite the currency war due to the introduction of two integrated resorts, mainly Marina Bay Sands by Las Vegas Sands, and Resort World Sentosa by Genting Singapore, both being overseas corporations. Furthermore, with government expenditure on the two casinos, our growth in the service sector can be assured despite the ongoing currency war issues. Last and most importantly, Singapore has managed her strong growth and averted an economic slowdown from her currency war due to her use of the free floating exchange rate system by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Our exchange rate, despite being influenced by market forces and the government, is strictly not allowed to fluctuate beyond the allocated upper and lower limits. Once the exchange rate distorted too much, MAS will intervene by buying or selling our Sing dollar through the open market operation. Hence, having a more stable exchange rate in relative to other countries, confidence of our Sing dollar will rise, signaling business optimism, where overseas business investors like Las Vegas Singapore from Nevada, United States will flood into Singapore, boosting our various sectors. To add on, having a stable exchange rate helps to maintain our position as the world's fourth largest financial hub, furthering our growth. Hence, with our provident exchange rate system and prudent government policies on expenditure, the currency war can be said to have been unsuccessful in dampening our growth.
Okay, tell us more about the balance of payments.
On the external economy, Singapore's balance of payments will deteriorate as the current account worsens. Balance of payments can be defined as the summarized account of total payments and receipts of a country as a result of international trade with the rest of the world. Export revenue falls, import expenditure rise, current account worsens. Assuming Marshall-Lerner's condition, where the demand for exports and imports are price elastic, the demand for exports will fall more than proportionately, and that for imports will rise more than proportionately. Hence, export revenue falls, import expenditure rise, current account worsen, BOP deteriorate.
Tell us more about the exchange rate.
A deficit BOT will lead to the depreciation of Sing dollar due to the net outflow of funds. Deficit BOT means falling value of exports, and with falling demand, it also means that the demand for Sing dollar has fallen in the foreign exchange market from D to D1 as seen in figure. On the other hand, the rising value of imports means that the demand for foreign currency will increase, and we need Sing dollar to buy foreign currency. This will flood the market with our domestic currency, increasing its supply from S to S1. With the fall in demand and rise in supply of Sing dollar in the foreign exchange market, ceteris paribus, price of our currency fall from P1 to P2, it depreciates. However, depreciating our exchange rate will eventually solve the deficit in the long run, as exports will be cheaper and imports will be dearer.
What do you have to say about protectionism?
With the formation of the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, GATT, which is now replaced by the World Trade Organization, the world knows that free trade brings with it the mutual benefits in a win-win situation. It is fundamentally a positive sum game. In fact, free trade was strongly advocated even in the earlier centuries by pioneers of the economics like Adam Smith and David Ricardo. Yet, protectionism is here to stay and is adopted by many countries now to offset the loss of competitiveness from international competitions, as well as the current account imbalance, both being caused by increasingly overvalued currencies in this currency war. Protectionism takes form of tariffs, quotas, embargoes, rules and regulations, and subsidies. However, for the case of Singapore, the use of protectionism to improve our balance of payments is theoretically invalid, generally because in our context, demand for imports is inelastic, with the value at 0.54. The imposition of tariffs and quotas, hence, will not result in any significant fall in our consumption of imports. Hence, to resolve the problems of a deficit BOP, Singapore has to turn to deflationary measures like contractionary fiscal policy and exchange rate policy.
Tell us more about the standard of living.
Having covered the consequences on the macroeconomics, the last consequence will be from the micro aspect, being the standard of living of individuals. Standard of living refers to the quantifiable and non-quantifiable aspects of life. Singapore's gross national product, GNP, which refers to the total value of all final goods and services produced by residents of Singapore, regardless of territorial boundaries over a period of time, usually a year, including allowance for depreciation, can generally be used to measure our standard of living. Better still, by using real GNP per capita, which takes into account inflation and population change, we can certainly have a more accurate study on the effects of the currency war on our standard of living. When real GNP per capita increased from the growth of Singapore over the period of the currency war, one's purchasing power will increase, thereby allowing him to purchase more goods and services to satisfy his wants, and therefore giving rise to higher utility and material standard of living. Furthermore, this increase in consumer demand increased government revenue as more taxes are absorbed from the people in terms of direct tax, GST.
which is set at 7% in Singapore currently. Such government revenue will then translate to higher non-material standard of living of the people, because this revenue can then be used as the government expenditure on facilities and infrastructures to improve the life of the people. However, having our Gini coefficient at 0.478, we cannot totally be sure that all the Singaporeans enjoy a higher standard of living. A coefficient of 0 implies perfect equality, and that of 1 implies perfect inequality. We can only say that the populace in general enjoy higher standards of living. Furthermore, the non-quantifiable aspect of living does not consist solely on the availability of facilities and infrastructures. Hence, as much as we conclude from our increased real GNP per capita that the general living standards have improved along with the recent currency war, this hypothesis will be more reliable if we take into account other indicators such as the Human Development Index (HDI), postulated by the United Nations (UN), the Measurement of Welfare (MEW) by Tobin and Nohans, and Gross Happiness Index (GHI) by the King of Bhutan. In all, we see that the consequences from the currency war are great and well extended. Whether or not a country benefits, it really depends on the nature of an economy as well as the policies implemented. For the case of Singapore, our group feels that we gain on the overall. Although there is a case of cost-push inflation on the flip side, we see that it is mild, and this can be in fact signal business optimism. However, it is still important for us to stay tuned to current changes in the currency war and stay well prepared should a financial crisis befall on us.
Through this project, we have learned that the currency war has always been happening between countries, and now the situation of the currency war has worsened. For example, we have seen that through the exchange rate, although the exchange rate is an economic tool officially, it is actually now more of a political tool than an economic tool. This is so as countries try to outwit each other for survival through the use of exchange rates to affect trade and ultimately economic growth. However, our group feels that the use of the exchange rate as a tool for economies to win in this game of the survival of the fittest has been used in a wrong way and will eventually lead to negative impacts in the long run, which will outweigh the short-term benefits. One such negative impact is the liquidity trap for the US, which will result if the US continues to use QE2 to depreciate its currency. Through the study of the currency war, we hope that countries will be able to solve the problems of this battle amid